Attorney Tim Anderson. He's the owner of Anderson and Associates. He graduated from Regent University of Law in 1999. He started his firm 4 years later. He focuses his practice on bankruptcy, criminal defense, aviation law, wills, and some family law. He sits on the board of directors of the Tidewater Bankruptcy Bar, and he's a den leader for Club Scout Den 7, PAC 364. And if a lot of you don't know, he's also got a Facebook page called Engage Your Government, where he explains a lot of the bills that have been going on, and some of them are affecting one of his clients that just got arrested when he was in Newport News at a park attending an event that they were having there, and he was open carrying. So now you have that law where you can go from one city to another, and you don't know whether or not you're going to be arrested for legally open carrying, but now in a park. So I'd like to introduce Tim Anderson.
Good evening. I have a lot to talk about, a lot to bring everybody up to speed, try to make sense of what's happening right now at the federal level, and then we really need to talk about Virginia. First off, we're going to talk about the 12th Amendment. All right? The 12th Amendment is why the president is fighting right now in the courts. So, if the president is successful in getting the election contested, and the courts rule that the results cannot be legitimately validated by the Secretary of State for each individual state, and neither party is able to get to the magic number of 270, then what will happen is we will go into a contested election, and believe it or not, our founding fathers anticipated this happening. The 12th Amendment has been used as recently as Rutherford Hayes. Now, only Robert remembers that.
Well, it's really funny. Thank you.
But true. But the reason that Rutherford Hayes was President of the United States was because of the 12th Amendment. You're going to see certain challenges be filed in a variety of states. Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. If challenges are filed, some have been and some more will be, if challenges are filed and the courts find that those states' results cannot count, then neither party will make it to 270 votes. Then we will go to the House of Representatives. Now, all of you are probably thinking, well, that's no good, that's controlled by the Democrats. But it's more complicated than that. The House of Representatives has 50 delegations in it, one for each individual state. So, for instance, a state like Virginia has a delegation. It's a Democrat delegation because there's more Democrat representatives in Virginia than there are Republican representatives. Each state in the country totals 50, and there are 26 Republican delegations in the House of Representatives. So that means that the Republicans, although not controlling the majority of the members, have the majority of the state delegations. The delegations then would vote for the president, and it is a majority rule. So as long as all of the Republicans stay together, the Republicans can pick anybody that they want to for president, including Jo Jorgensen. They could pick Kamala Harris. They could pick Joe Biden. They could pick Michael Pence. There's anybody who is on the ticket they can select. We suspect that, of course, they would pick President Trump, but there's no guarantee. The Senate then picks the Vice President. The Senate is by majority rule. There's more Republicans than Democrats, so they would pick the Vice President, and again, they could pick anybody they wanted. If the House of Representatives picked Mike Pence for President, they could pick Donald Trump for Vice President. They could pick Mike Pence for president. They could pick Jo Jorgensen for vice president. That's how this can go. The president obviously believes that if he can force a contested election, that he will be selected in the House of Representatives and that the Senate will pick Mike Pence. That's why you're seeing the fights. That's what it's about. If there's enough challenges and those challenges are validated by the courts, You take out Pennsylvania and you take out Wisconsin, that alone would stop anybody from being able to get to 270 votes, assuming the president gets North Carolina and Georgia. So the president gets North Carolina and Georgia, you throw out Wisconsin results and you throw out Pennsylvania results, that would be enough. You throw out Arizona results, that would be enough. So there's lots of combinations here, that's why there's spikes. That's the 12th Amendment, all right? We very well may see that in our time here with how this goes. So, I wanted you just to understand how the 12th Amendment works and understand why the president is fighting. It seems all but certain the president is going to lose in the way that the votes are coming in. So there's no legitimate expectation that the president will win. He will win Georgia, he will win North Carolina, but Joe Biden only has to get Nevada and Arizona, which appears he will get by all independent metrics, and Joe Biden would get the Electoral College unless the courts step in. So that's what's about. All right, so I wanted you to understand the 12th Amendment, and that's what's going on. All right, let's flip that to Virginia. Virginia is a total mess in how the elections happened. In 2016, the president lost Virginia by 200,000 votes. This year, he lost by 400,000 votes. Right? 400,000 more people voted for Joe Biden than they did for Donald Trump statewide. Now we can sit here and say people cheated, this and that, but we didn't have 400,000 people cheating. All right, we have to take a real hard look at a truth, which is if you're trying to win a popularity contest, you have to get more people on your team. All right, and there has to be some hard discussions about how to get more people on that team. The most interesting thing about the presidential election was the Latino vote in Florida. 45% of the, well, I guess you're not supposed to say Latino, the Hispanic vote, yeah, that's right, is amazing for the president. He picked up 45% in Florida. That's unheard of. That's never happened. We have 800,000 Hispanics in the United States, or in Virginia, 800,000. And so they're begging to come to the conservative side. They need to be invited and brought in. We have the Asian population, Pacific Islanders, that need to be brought in. If we don't, then what's going to happen every year statewide is a repeat of what happened this year, 2016. There's more people on the other team. Now we can claim, well, they changed the rules and they made it more fair for one side or the other, but that's no different than claiming that you're not a good football team because the rules aren't the way you want them. All right? The Washington Redskins, or whatever they're called now, aren't a good football team because they're not a good football team. All right? And we have to accept that that's where we are right now. All right? We have to walk back the idea that they cheated and that they did this and they did that. Did some people cheat? Yes. No doubt. No doubt people cheated in this election, and not by 400,000 votes. All right? We have to accept that, and we have to really start looking at what are we doing as conservatives to be unifying and to bring people into the party. Because what will happen next year is a repeat of what happened this year if some immediate strategy changes aren't made. You will see the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the attorney general races go for the Democrats yet again if we don't change how we bring people in. Now, despite that, there are excellent opportunities to take back the House of Delegates. And some of those races happen right here in Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads. The 83rd district is one of those, one I happen to live in. Nancy Guy is the Democrat delegate. She won that race by 40 votes. All right, 40. So the 83rd for the president went 51-49. So we have to start looking at these races and finding there's 2 or 3 right here in Hampton Roads that we can win. The Democrats hold 6 seats, 6 majority seats. They have 55 to 49, or 55 to 45 in the House of Delegates. We need to win 6. At least a couple of those are right here. There's a race in Norfolk that's about to start that you probably haven't heard of. It's in the 90th district. This is over by the airport. Joe Lindsay is a very powerful delegate, very powerful Democrat delegate in the city of Norfolk. He just got nominated and appointed to a judge, which is fantastic. Because when they redistricted Norfolk, which is very blue, there's no easy way to say that, they made it to where Joe Lindsay was, or they made that where they put all the Republicans in this district, and it's still very blue. It's about 10 points blue, all right? That's going to be a special election, and most likely that's going to be in December and January, okay? So what we have to do, it's a fresh slate, and there's not going to be a lot of people paying attention to this because everybody's reeling from the presidential election, and the last thing anybody's going to want to do is get out and vote in January, all right? But we have to mobilize and get behind the Republican Party of Norfolk and get that seat red. All right, that's one less seat, and that's a seat that's winnable if we put all of our efforts behind it. If that can go red, that only leaves us 5. All right, and once you get in, you know, the incumbent stays in usually. I mean, it's not uncommon the incumbent loses. So you get an incumbent in, and you know, people just keep voting for him regardless of the party. So there's lots of opportunities to take the House of Delegates back next year, and we have to focus our energy. And I know it's not sexy. I know it's not fun. It's not, you know, it's not an exciting race. Those things don't get you moved around like a Senate race or a congressional race. But it is extremely important that we take the House of Delegates back next year. 2 good things happened from the election in Virginia. One, the city council, most of it, unfortunately not for Eric Ray, but most of it went very conservative. That's fantastic for Virginia Beach. The second good thing that happened is Amendment 1 passed. Okay? Amendment 1 was critical that the Democrats couldn't go in and draw all the lines to heavily favor themselves. So we're going to have fair lines from the Redistricting Commission in 2021. The delegate races, you need to get behind them. You need to find them. You need to donate money. You need to volunteer. It's door knocking. It's work. And we have to take that back. Because if the Republican Party is unable to readjust and we lose statewide, which is highly probable unless things change, then we can at least hold the House of Delegates. All right? That's where we are. Those are the analytics of Virginia. Now, one real way of winning is find your Hispanic friends, the Latino friends that you have, the neighbors that go to your church, invite them, bring them in, bring their friends. You know, they are more conservative than anybody as a group. You know, they love babies, they love, you know, God, they love guns, they love immigration laws. They're everything that you want in a conservative group, but nobody's invited them to come in. And we need to do that. There's 800,000 of them in Virginia, and we need to bring them into the fold to win. We know today that there are 400,000 more of them than there are of us, all right, by the presidential election. And they're going to do the same thing next year. No excuse absentee voting. You're going to be able to come in and vote 45 days in advance. We can't keep complaining about that. We got to play the game. We got to do it. We got to get people engaged on how to vote early. We got to do all these things. Instead of complaining that they're cheating, we need to engage the game and play the game. And that's what needs to happen. So, regardless of who the president is at the end of all of this. All right? For the sake of Virginia, we have to do that. So, Bill's here, Bill Curtis. You know, Bill kind of took control of the Republican Party. It's a mess. It was a mess. He's making it better. But more hands make for light work. Engaging with Bill, it's important. Finding what we can do to come together. Instead of, hey, I'm not going to vote for Scott Taylor. I hate Scott Taylor. He's a jerk. You know, I can't believe people said that. You know, at this point with Larea, people openly saying they're not going to vote for Scott Taylor. Was he the favorite pick for me? No. But we shouldn't be like that. We can't be like that, or they're just going to keep winning. All right. So that's my take of what's going on. The 12th Amendment, the lay of the land. The 83rd race is big. I'm probably going to enter it myself. Chris Stolley's going to enter it. He's the former delegate, so that'll be a fun little friendly fight between the two of us. And that's how that is. That's fine. But nonetheless, we're going to focus on these contested races. But most important for the rest of this year, getting in touch with Bob Brown in Norfolk and rallying behind their candidate on the 90th and going out and knocking doors at the airport, out there by the airport, putting up signs and doing all this over again in the cold of winter in January. We got to do it. All right? Yep. Sure.
You mentioned about going to Congress. Would that be the representatives that are there now?
Yes.
Or the new ones?
The ones that are there now. And even if it happens to be the ones that are re-elected, the Congress went more red this year, and I think we'll have 28 delegations. So either way you cut it, the Republicans will decide who the president is if it becomes a 12th Amendment challenge.
I can't hear back here, so repeat the question.
Yes, please repeat the question.
All right. So she asked would it be this Congress that picks the 12th Amendment, or will it be the new Congress? And either way, there's going to be more Republican delegations in the current Congress or the new Congress to pick the president. So I feel very comfortable it will be this Congress that will pick the president and the vice president, not the new one. But no matter what, the Republicans are going to hold the Senate. We're going to have more delegations on the House of Representatives. So either way, it works well for the Republicans. But by God, that is not how you want to win an election. Okay, the way we've got to start changing our way of thinking of how we're going to play this game. Yep.
How do you invalidate it? Like by one state at a time?
Well, there's 3 states that you have to invalidate: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Nevada, or Arizona. Nevada or Arizona. You got to knock those states out of play because neither party can get to 270 without those 3 states in play.
What about like Virginia? They say that.
Don't matter. Virginia don't matter. There's no reason, expectation to try to challenge 400,000 votes. 400,000 votes. Yep.
The problem is that we were supposed to be observers, my wife and I, and it got canceled. We're not doing it. And we heard about states that had the observers standing 20 feet or more away. How are you supposed to see what's going on 20 feet away? And there were places that had no observers at all. What's to oversee what's going on? The Democrats had free will. They can do whatever they want.
Well, I think what the observers are doing is they're watching the absentee ballots be opened and put into the machine. We're about 20 feet away here, maybe 15. So I think you could see that happening. You don't get to see who people are voting for. You just got to see that they open that envelope and put it in the machine. And that is, I think that's a non-starter, really, to try to complain about those things, because did people cheat in Virginia? Absolutely, but not 400,000. Not enough to make it worth it. Yep.
Tim, based on what you know and as an attorney, do you think that in Wisconsin, Arizona, and Pennsylvania, there are good grounds to succeed in court this way that you're describing?
There's fantastic grounds in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania did this. They sent out unsolicited ballots, all right? And that is a big problem. Like in Virginia, if you wanted a absentee ballot, you had to request it and they mailed it to you. Pennsylvania sent out absentee ballots to unsolicited people. So people got absentee ballots that were dead, that didn't live there, and they have no idea how many ballots are outstanding. That's why Pennsylvania cannot be called. Virginia, we know how many ballots are outstanding. And so we know that there's 40,000 ballots outstanding or 6,000 ballots outstanding. We know that. They don't know it in Pennsylvania. It's outrageous. Wisconsin doesn't require you to match signatures on the ballot to your absentee signature. They're not even allowed to look at that. When you're at the Board of Elections and you sign your signature, they're not allowed to compare that. That furthers fraud. So there is opportunity in those 2 places to contest those issues, and the president's legal team is doing that. Arizona, that's a weird thing about the water and all that. So I don't know if they're going to get anywhere, but if they can knock out Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, that would be enough. If they could knock out those 2 states. Go ahead.
Jim, so an example of an invalidation of a state would be, like you said, not matching signatures, or and that would be decided by a judge where he thinks that that's enough to wipe it out, or
that's right. The Pennsylvania fight is before the Supreme Court of the United States, and the fight in Wisconsin is in their like lower level state court at this point. And so that'll move up probably rapidly if they get any traction. But but the president has to win North Carolina and Georgia. If one of those states falls for Biden, game over. It won't matter because Biden will have it then. Go ahead.
I was just wanted everybody to know that Mitch McConnell, with his deep-pocketed PACs, not only did he not give Daniel Gade a penny or Ed Gillespie, but he also didn't even give him a phone call to congratulate him on winning the primary. So
Yeah.
Could you repeat
if
that,
want to
Tim?
win elections, that is not the strategy to take.
I saw a few things happen to Daniel Gade. One, I saw him not get on the stage when the president was here in Newport News. He wasn't even acknowledged. I saw when at Nick Freitas's event when Ted Cruz came into town and ran Paul, he was there. They didn't even acknowledge him. I saw a direct slight by the Republican Party to Daniel Gade. Why they treated him like that, I'm not sure. But it seemed to be a concerted effort not even to acknowledge him. They let Leon Benjamin on the stage, who had really, honestly, loved Leon, but had no chance of winning at all. But they didn't let the U.S. Senator candidate on the stage. That's just what happens. And I don't speak for them, but that's true. Anybody else?
I have a quick
Yeah.
question, and this is on a smaller content, but smaller context. I have been going on the Virginia electoral site just because my whole family, 3 of us voted in person, my daughter absentee.
Right.
And just checking because we were in person, so I figured I'd put it in the machine, it'll be voted or counted. And yesterday, nothing.
Yeah,
Doesn't show anything, and today it's like, sorry.
Yeah, her question is one that I've received probably 800 emails on in the past 2 days. You go online and you look at the portal and it says you didn't vote, right? There's a system called Verus in Virginia. And what happens is that the registrars, each individual registrar has to upload that information into Verus of who voted. And we're going to be talking about this at 8 o'clock with Jeff Marks on Facebook, answering this question much more in depth than I'm going to attempt to do. But the basic answer is these will all be updated within a week. It just takes time. You got to remember, when you walked in to vote, they checked your name, they gave you a ballot, right? And you took that ballot, you filled it out, and you put it in the machine, and then you left, right? Nobody knows who you voted for, okay? The machine does not tabulate your ballot to your name. So as long as you got a ballot and you put that ballot in the machine, if you bypassed the front desk and you stole a ballot out of there and you put it in the machine, that would count as a vote. All right? So as long as you got a ballot and you put it in the machine, that counted. And the records we're told are going to update within the next week. So if you go online and you look and it says you didn't vote, that's the explanation. Jeff Marks is going to give a much more thorough answer to that on our Facebook at 8:30. But that's the short and simple. Go ahead.
Just as a quick follow-up to that, it says there's no record of me as a voter. So does that kick my vote out when they?
No, like I said, if you showed up and you went in there and you grabbed a stack of ballots, if you could get the ballots, you stole them, and you filled them all out and you put 10 of them in the machine, those 10 votes would count. Because those are not tied to anybody. Once they're in the machine, they count. So as long as you got the ballot in the machine, you're fine. All that technical stuff with Verus is going to work its way through. Keep in mind, about a little bit more than 4 million people voted. It's a lot. A lot of jurisdictions have to upload all this stuff, and the system is old as dirt. And so they're saying the Virginia elections is saying it's going to take about a week. Try to dial that conspiracy theory back that your vote didn't count, because as long as you put that ballot in the machine, your vote was tabulated by that system. Yep.
Tim, could you touch on the Second Amendment, both in what happened in Norfolk this past week and also the no gun control?
Right, yeah. So Norfolk is trying to pass an ordinance under the new rules that's going to make it illegal to have guns in public buildings and city parks. They're allowed to do that. This is what Newport News has done. This is what Richmond has done. Fortunately, it won't happen in Virginia Beach because of the election we just had. Our city council now is solidly conservative. Everybody got reelected that needed to get reelected. It would have been nice if Eric could have put that extra vote on there, but we have enough with Bobby Dyer and them to not see those things happen in Virginia Beach. But in a place like Newport News, if you are open carrying in a park, you can expect that you're going to get charged with violation of their new ordinance. That's what that one case is about that I'm involved in up there. I will say my client intended on that to happen. He brought out a camera crew. He got it all on video. He was doing this on purpose. He's challenging the law. It's not the best way to do it. It was not on my recommendation, but he did it. And you know, here's the thing. When you commit a crime, which he did, according to the ordinance, he committed a crime by open carrying. The police took his gun and they put it in evidence. And they would have to do that in any kind of a criminal situation. You get your gun back if you beat your case. Your gun is forfeited if you lose your case. The chief of police in Newport News gave him his gun back like 2 weeks ago, before the case has even come up. So I think that's a general indication that the police don't feel good about what they did. They don't feel that it's right. But nonetheless, my God, how you know, every jurisdiction is going to be different when it comes to when you can carry the Second Amendment. You know, politicians surrounded by people with guns tell us what we can do with guns. It's insane. You have a right to defend yourself at home, but you don't have a right to defend yourself in a city park. You have a right to defend yourself at your office or your workplace, but you don't have a right to defend yourself if you go to the DMV. It's insane. So it's a political problem. It's a political fix. Bob Brown is suing in Norfolk. Bob is crazy. Okay, and I say that very flatteringly. Okay, he's like a junkyard dog, a rabid junkyard dog. All right. All he sees is red meat. There's nothing, no other move for Bob Brown. He's fighting. And he's fighting for the Second Amendment out there. He had a petition drive he wants a referendum in Norfolk that says you're not going to pass gun ordinances, and he couldn't get the signatures, and the court just ruled that they didn't get the signatures in time, so he said, fine. He refiled the petition and was sitting out there on Tuesday and got all the signatures he wanted on Tuesday. And so he's going to refile it. So, I mean, you know, you might not live in Norfolk, but it's a good, you know, he's the guy. He's the guy doing these fights. And we don't have to do it in Virginia Beach, thank God. But he's doing it in Norfolk. Go ahead.
Can you speak a little bit about our rights? I'm driving my car down the road on a city street, and a group of people surround my vehicle. Do I have the right to drive away? Do I have to stop and let them attack my car? What rights do I have to continue to drive freely on a road where pedestrians are impeding my ability to drive?
So he's asking, what do you do if you're on the road and you get surrounded by protesters? What can you do? What can't you do? I think there's two models. There's the Richmond model, which that police officer that I was engaged with found himself in that exact situation. He was stopped. The mob came up and was beating on his car. They clearly would have set that car on fire if they had a few more minutes. So what he did is he slowly rolled through the crowd. Okay, so that's the Richmond model. That police officer didn't do anything wrong, according to the Commonwealth Attorney. Then you have the Charlottesville model, where you'll mow them down like you know, bowling pins. Okay, that will put you in prison. And so you have to, if you find yourself in a position where they're beating on your car and you slowly roll through the crowd, you obviously are not doing anything that would be illegal. If somebody gets run over, somebody gets run over. But you have a 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 pound car, you're going to move through people if you have to. Go ahead.
As a follow-up, at what point am I allowed to shoot these people?
Well,
Turn off the mic.
so when can you discharge a firearm? When you feel like you're in reasonable fear of death or bodily harm. And that's the standard. But you have to keep in mind, I don't know how many rounds your magazine holds, but there's probably going to be more than the people out there that the people you can shoot with your pistol. So
I'm pretty sure after the first two go down, the rest
sometimes they pull out guns too. You know, those are complicated questions, but when you squeeze the trigger, you have to be in reasonable fear of death or bodily harm. And if there was any reasonable way to exit that situation by backing up or rolling through or something like that, that would be the time to do it. Now, they bust your window, they're pulling you out of your car, they're beating on you. That would be a clear indication where you would be able to use your firearm to defend yourself. But if you're sitting in your car and they're just banging on your car and you roll down your window and you shoot them, that would be a difficult case for you.
What about brandishing?
Well, you can brandish if you are in reasonable fear of death or bodily harm. So you have to be in that position where you are a reasonable person would say that you are going to face death or serious bodily harm at that moment.
You kept talking about, in Newport News, the gentleman who was carrying open.
Yeah.
What about concealed?
It's legal to carry concealed in Newport News.
As long as you got.
You have to have a permit. That's right. And if you don't have a permit, you are allowed to do it online. We do it through our gun shop. You can do it online until December 31st. So if you don't have a permit, you should take advantage of the law and get it online through my office or through these other companies. You have until December 31st to get it online. That also will allow you to buy more than one handgun per month, because if you have a concealed handgun permit, you are not a bad guy, and if you don't, you are a bad guy. So we can't trust you with more than one handgun. So, yep, go ahead.
If you're in this car and they're trying to stop you and the police come up, what right do the police have to use force against them to get them away?
Well, I mean, police can use force to defend other people. If they feel like you're in threat of bodily harm, they can use non-lethal and lethal force if they feel like those have crossed. So, by the way, if you don't know who this guy is, Brad Martin, I think you should give him a big hand. Nobody worked harder in Virginia Beach than Brad Martin for the president and for the Republican tickets.
And Elaine.
That's right. That's right.
Cheer for Elaine.
Thank you all so much. Even though everything didn't go our way, it was very much noticed. So, yep, go ahead.
Hey, Tim, how about those, I see them online, these, the pepper pellets?
Yeah.
Is that considered, for example, if you defended yourself with one of those, like in Reed's case, you know, if you're, you know, surrounded and you open your window to try to get this dude away rather than shoot him or kill him, you pop him with one of these, I think they're the little gel pepper things that you hit him in the chest and it breaks open.
Right.
What is that?
That's non-lethal. You can use that. You can use pepper spray. You can use pepper gel. You can use a stun gun. Those are all non-lethals.
But I mean,
you don't have to be in reasonable fear of death or bodily harm to use non-lethals. You only have to be in fear of attack to use non-lethals.
Okay, so but they're not considered firearms.
No, no. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Yep.
Do you know the Chris in Northern Virginia, the Constitutional Conservatives, are they doing that class on November 14th? Is he coming down to do that class for the legislative?
Chris Marston?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. I've talked to Chris 2 or 3 times today, but we haven't talked about that.
Okay, because I thought he was coming down to do that class.
He very well may be.
Okay.
I don't know. Yep.
Are you still doing that petition for
Louise Lucas?
Yeah.
The petition's done. We're ready to file it. So yeah, we have to. But it won't be filed until April, and that's just how it's going to be. They can't file it while they're in session, and they're still in session, and they're going to keep the session open till January, and then they're going to go into general session, and the general session is going to go till the end of February, and then we can't file for 30 days after that, so it's going to be April. So it's going to be a little gift for her. It's there. It's ready. We're going to file it in April. So, but I don't know if you saw what happened in Portsmouth, but she's going to get reelected. It is a disaster in Portsmouth. What they did on this election, they elected everybody who was Louise Lucas's cronies and friends and buddies. Every single person that got elected in Portsmouth. They reelected Whitaker. Whitaker just got convicted of a felony for forgery 2 years ago. They reelected him. Don Scott is a convicted felon. He's a drug dealer, federal drug dealer. Spent 7 years in prison. He's their state delegate. And Louise is currently charged with a felony. You think that people in Portsmouth are going to do anything, really? No. So we're going to go through all this, and we might get a recall, and they're going to put her right back in office. We just have to accept that that's Portsmouth. It's disgusting.
Are you out $20 million yet?
So my lawsuit is this way. They filed the lawsuit in June on July 1st. We responded on July 31st. They will not clear a date for us to get in front of a judge claiming that they're in session. So I've always said if I have a $20 million lawsuit, I want to move the ball. They don't want to move the ball. It's not a bad thing for a guy being sued for $20 million for saying a senator committed a felony, that she subsequently get charged with committing a felony. That doesn't hurt a guy in a defamation case. So I'm not 100% sure what they're going to do with that. It's just literally sitting out there. But we filed a 40-page response saying she can't do it, and they've done nothing. It's stalled. So I haven't had to pay much except for legal fees.
So you're not representing yourself, somebody else?
No, I hired a big law firm from DC. It's expensive. Yep.
Felony versus misdemeanor on attacking police officer, Tim Worth.
Oh yeah, that didn't change. So you hit a cop, even if they don't get injured, that didn't change this session. So thank goodness that did not change. They did do two main things this year, though, you should know, in the special session that do matter. One, they're going to give sentencing credits to a variety of people. There's the Truth in Sentencing Act, which says that you have to serve 85% of your time. Don Scott, the Portsmouth senator, the convicted drug dealer who served 7 years in federal prison, wrote a bill and said we need to give felons more credit, up to 50%, and they specifically wrote in people charged with child pornography. They intended it. They intentionally wrote that in. They intentionally allowed people who have sex with minors to get sentencing credits. So it's so you can go out and you can feloniously assault your spouse, like punch your wife in the face, and it's a felony. You don't get any sentencing credits for that, but you go and you punch a cop in the face and you'll get sentencing credits. That's what they've done. That's the laws. It's passed. It's all through, and the governor's up there bragging about how fantastic it is and all that. It's gross. The parole board is letting people out. They're violating the laws. They're letting rapists out. They're letting cop killers out. They're not following the rules and regulations, and the Attorney General's office is doing nothing to check that. And so these are things that are happening. They passed a bill that says you can drive down the highway without your headlights on, and police can't stop them because that would be racist. No joke, not exaggerating. So you can be going down the highway with no lights on. The governor changed this, thank God, but the General Assembly passed it. No lights, no taillights. Because if you're driving down the road in the pitch black of night with no lights and no headlights or taillights, and a police stops you, that's racist. That's what they said. And so that's what they've done. The governor changed it about the headlights, but it's still no taillights. So if you are driving down the road and there's a car stopped on the interstate and there's no taillights on it and you collide with them, the police cannot do anything to intervene in that vehicle and pull them over for not having taillights on. So people will die.
Taillights are still required in an inspection.
That's right. And they just passed a bill that said, get this, they just passed a bill in February that said minors, you can't smoke in a car with a minor because it's bad, and minors deserve fresh air and all this stuff. And then they realized that was racist, and they changed the bill in August and said that you can't pull somebody over for smoking in a car with a minor. So that's how the whole session has gone. That's a very absurd example, but that's what's happened. They've decided that certain things are racist, and they've said that you can't stop people for driving without taillights. Now there's other things like tags and inspection stickers. I'm actually fine with that personally as a defense lawyer. Let that be a secondary reason, not a primary reason, because that's not necessarily a safety issue per se. But to say that somebody doesn't have taillights on or headlights on and the General Assembly passed that shows you how out of control they are. Go ahead.
I'd like to switch to talk a little bit about masks for a moment. It's my understanding that the governor has signed an executive order and he's authorized to charge us a $500 fine for not wearing a mask. How is that legal? Is that a law? And how is that enforced?
So currently, the way the law was in the beginning of the coronavirus is the governor had two options to enforce his executive orders. There's no enforcement penalty, or you could go to jail for a year and up to a $2,500 fine. Those were the only two options the governor had. So he made everything a Class 1 misdemeanor. All right? The General Assembly changed the law and said that now the governor can elect, if he chooses, to create an executive order and say that the penalty would be a fine of up to $500. That's what he said. And that's what they did. So now instead of saying not wearing a mask, you go to jail, now they're saying not wearing a mask, you'll pay a $500 fine or a $250 fine. It's like a seatbelt. All right? That's what they decided to do. And so that's actually a good thing, I think, because I think it's been crazy to tell people that they're going to go to jail for doing things. I'm not a big fan of revenue stuff, but I think at least now we can say, hey, if I don't want to wear a mask, the penalty is $100 or $150. We know what that is.
Is this like a ticket that you get a court?
Yeah, it's
They
a
have to produce evidence that
yeah,
you
just like they would.
violated an executive order that's not law?
Yep, just like a seatbelt. They would have to come to court. They would have to say, I saw Reed in the restaurant without a mask. I gave him a ticket, and the judge would have to decide if he believed you or not.
Can you issue this legally?
Any law enforcement officer.
Law enforcement.
Yeah.
Only a law enforcement officer.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the burden of proof is on them.
Right, right. Yeah, always, always. So, go ahead.
What about the executive, part of the executive order that said if you had a medical condition, you couldn't wear a mask? How do they define whether you can or not?
Well, so the ultimate questions is inside of a building like this, not wearing a mask and not eating would be a technical violation of the governor's order. I think truly, honestly, nobody went to jail, by the way, that I'm aware of for violating the mask ordinance when it was initially done. Nobody even got criminally charged that I've heard of. I don't think that you're going to see the police come out and give you a fine. Okay, I don't think that that's going to happen. In the city of Newport News, if you want to carry around a gun and open carry, it's a $500 fine. That's the penalty. I don't think that the police are super eager about doing that, even though they did it in my guy's case. My guy provoked them to do it. He literally called the police on himself. So I don't think they were out there looking to enforce that. I mean, I guess if you want to call your police on yourself and say, to F to the governor, I'm not going to wear a mask, I think you might compel them to actually charge you with it, but I don't think they're actively looking to go out and enforce these orders. Yep.
But back to our question, if you have a, part of the executive order said, at least, the first one that came out, was if you had a medical condition, that you didn't have to wear a mask, and they could not ask you what your medical condition or ask you to provide proof.
That's right. So the question will be more based upon why is the restaurant or why is the establishment allowing somebody, because the restaurant needs to keep people from coming in and provide reasonable accommodations to the people who can't wear masks. That's what the governor says they have to do. So if you can't wear a mask, the reasonable accommodation is they provide curbside service. And so the penalty would most likely go to the restaurant, not necessarily the individual.
Have they closed down some businesses?
Oh yeah, they've closed down Calabash, they've closed down a business up in Prince George, they've closed down 2 or 3 over here in Norfolk. They've definitely closed down businesses for mask violations or loitering at the bar violations.
So just to be clear, a business can still refuse to allow you in if you don't have a mask.
Absolutely, and they should.
But they need to provide service outside.
That's right, if they can. So a business has to provide a reasonable accommodation if they can. A restaurant could provide curbside service, but like your dentist, they obviously can't put you in a chair out in the parking lot, right? So not every business has to provide a reasonable accommodation, but the ones that can must provide the reasonable accommodation. Otherwise, they face the penalties of the Virginia Department of Health coming in or other law enforcement coming in and enforcing the governor's order.
It seems to be you could go vote, and they couldn't make you wear a mask in there to go vote, but they'd shut down a business.
Well, I mean, it's even like this. None of y'all are wearing masks because you're eating, right? I can't get coronavirus from you because you're eating. It's ridiculous. Or if you have a beer in your hand, you're not going to be spreading coronavirus. I mean, it's insane. We all know it's insane. It's just control. It's just the governor doing his thing, and so we just have to understand what it is. You can't sit here and debate what's right and wrong about it because it's dumb. Nobody in here is wearing a mask because you're eating. It just, you can't spread coronavirus if you're drinking a beer, but you spread coronavirus if you don't have a beer in your hand. That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. And also everybody knows that you can't keep mosquitoes off of your property by putting chicken wire around your property, right? So everybody understands that masks are, not really doing much. Go ahead.
As you can see, there's a motorcycle helmet. I got told I can't be in the establishment with this on my head. because it's not a mask. Oh. I got refused service because now
The Virginia Department of Health put out something about costumes, and this might be helpful, but that a face mask, like a Batman face mask, was not a mask under the regulations. So basically, you had to wear a mask, and then you had to put your costume mask on top of it. That comes from the Virginia Department of Health's interpretation. Wow. Go ahead.
To do the online class for the concealed carry, would they go to your page?
Yeah, if you're interested in doing the online class, my Facebook page, Virginia Law Office, just type that one in. You can find it. It's like $35. You watch it. It's 2.5 hours, and you have to complete it by December 31st. All right. Anybody else? All right.
Let's hear it for Tim Anderson.
Thank you. If anybody wants to know more about the whole why is my vote not showing up, we're going to record that here in about 15 minutes. It'll be on that Facebook page tonight.
All right.
Okay.
All right. That's going to be Facebook Live.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you again, Tim Anderson.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, well, I talk about it anyway. All right, so thanks again for coming, and we look forward to you running next year and maybe helping you out with that. And I know everybody loves Tim Anderson, right? Did you say I want to say something?
So when are you gonna make the decision and form the team so that we can get involved in helping you win?
Good question. Before Thanksgiving.
Before Thanksgiving, so your announcement will be made on Facebook?
And other places, yeah.
And other places?
Yeah, so soon.
You told your wife first this time, right?
She saw my post yesterday. She goes, "Oh, I see you're running for the House of Delegates." I'm like, "I guess so." We'll see. Yeah, it's better to ask for permission or for forgiveness than permission. Yeah.
She'll be your biggest fan, I'm sure.
No,
she won't.
She will likely vote against me, so just so I don't have to do it. Anyway, all right, guys. Good night.
All right. Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce the owner of the restaurant. Mike, would you like to come up and say a few words? We're very grateful that he lets us have this place as long as we come in here and eat.
And Laura.
And Laura, his daughter is the waitress. And Debbie's out here as a waitress too. Don't forget to tip them. They're really nice people and they do a lot of work for us. Thank you. It's so good. Okay, so I guess now we'll do our short business meeting, right? So